à tous et bienvenue pour cette nouvelle émission du Tigre Yoga Play. Comme vous le savez, nous avons à cœur de partager avec vous le yoga et surtout l'art de vivre du yoga. Et il nous est apparu très intéressant et même passionnant de pouvoir accueillir sur le plateau de notre émission Yoga Lifestyle l'ambassadeur d'Inde, son Excellence Ashraf, que je remercie beaucoup d'avoir accepté cette invitation. Nous allons faire cet entretien en anglais. Et voilà, si vous avez des questions, après, évidemment, nous pourrons y répondre. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. Very, very honored to have you here.
A great pleasure, and delighted to meet you and for all the work you are doing to promote yoga.
Thank you. Yeah, we try. So you have been living in Singapore before moving to France in July 2020, last year.
Yes.
So what is your first feeling about France and French people?
Oh, well, I think France is a beautiful country, great people. We've just extraordinarily rich heritage and of culture, cuisine, history. It's, I think, geographically very diverse. You've got Alps, you've got the Côte d'Azur, the beautiful beaches of the Mediterranean. You've got a pretty dramatic center, great vineyards. The Atlantic coast is also very dramatic with those wonderful cliffs. So I think in a small space it packs in a lot of beautiful diverse aspects of geography. So that's obvious. But as you go through the towns, the cities, the villages of France, where the soul of France lives, you can see the beauty in it, the most ordinary things. And I think the people have been very warm since I've come here. There's been welcomed with open arms. There's a lot of warmth for India, and I think people have generally been very appreciative of what India represents. So it's been very easy, despite the COVID pandemic, to go around to meet people, despite all these restrictions. And I've always felt the great warmth of welcome over here. So I'm looking forward over the next 3 years to actually enjoy the country and see all aspects of everything.
Visit more and more. Well, I hope for you the pandemic will allow you to visit more of France, even more.
I think I've seen a bit already.
I can tell.
Yes.
Well, that's very appreciative. Thank you for this beautiful compliments. So what is your specific role during the pandemic?
Well, I think the pandemic hasn't really come in the way of what we are here to do. I'd say the only constraint has been in terms of public events, public diplomacy, usually as a mission, and I in particular love to do a lot of public engagement, and that is the missing part. But otherwise, in terms of promoting our bilateral relations, that has been going on pretty normally. The government of France is working, I think, as hard as it always had, and so are we. So whether it is our political relations, whether it is our international partnership, whether it is defense, security, economic ties, working together to combat the pandemic and find solutions to COVID, or to address the economic challenges of the poorer countries as a result of the pandemic, or combating climate change. In every area, I think we continue to work with as much intensity as we would. And involvement. As I said, the only missing element is, of course, our public events, public diplomacy, and that, of course, once the pandemic is over, there can't be a better city than Paris to do that.
Of course, and to celebrate yoga, because we still look forward to June 21st. So we're here to speak about yoga under 3 different topics, maybe politics, education, and health. Because here we see yoga as a physical practice, but I think in your point of view, yoga is health beyond everything. So since 2014, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been a strong supporter of yoga development while creating a dedicated minister, and it's yoga, Ayurveda, and naturopathy ministry, and as well as creating the International Yoga Day. What was your first reaction as a diplomatic point of view?
Well, First I must tell you that I was working with the Prime Minister. I was in the Prime Minister's office looking after a number of portfolios, including external affairs, and therefore he had proposed this to us before we went to the UN General Assembly. Remember, that was the first time as the Prime Minister of India he was going to address the UN General Assembly. So we'd obviously, in a preparatory sense, we had discussed this, and he mentioned it to us that he'd like to announce or call upon the UN General Assembly to declare June 21st as the International Day of Yoga.
Why do you choose June 21st?
Well,
because of summer day, or?
Well, there are different, one way to look at it, if you take the view of the Northern Hemisphere,
yes,
then you would say that this is the longest day and therefore this should be the International Day of Yoga. But this is also, by some reckoning, the day on which the first yogi attained that status, and that was Lord Shiva. And so therefore it was a day that was chosen. But anyhow, he gave his first UN General Assembly speech in Hindi. Normally it's not a UN language, and he made this announcement and he gave this call. And he gave this call for three reasons. One, of course, he said that yoga is good for health. Second, he said yoga, by promoting a different attitude and philosophy to life, is also good for advancing peace in the world. Peace between communities, peace between people, and therefore peace between nations. And the third, and most important also, was he said yoga, by changing the way we look at ourselves, can also lead to a more sustainable planet. So individual health, planet's health, and a peaceful world, because it promotes, tolerance to me really is a halfway house, because tolerance implies that you're in some sense not really accepting, but you are living with it. To us, yoga means also embrace, a more positive way. So this was Prime Minister's idea, and it caught on. It's an unorthodox suggestion from a diplomatic perspective, because most people think of political initiatives or something which is economic or social in nature. But this is something he proposed, and I have to tell you that it was adopted by the UN General Assembly within 100 days by a unanimous vote. And this resolution was co-sponsored by a record number of 177 member countries, 177 out of 193. So you can see that it had absolute universal resonance. And therefore, as Prime Minister said, that this is really something which may be Indian in its origin, but it's something that India sees as a global heritage for the same reasons that it has universal value for health, peace, and a sustainable planet.
Yeah, universal value, but recalling the Indian roots.
Absolutely.
And keeping the heritage,
yes,
as
an
Indian asset.
Absolutely. So we see this really is something which has got on a lot of global attention every year now. You see it's celebrated across the world in almost every city.
Do you have figures of how many people celebrate the International Yoga Day?
No, I don't think it's very hard to sort of put a figure to it. But let me tell you, give you one example from my experience in Singapore over the past 3 years. We, in a city that's just 719 square kilometers, we had 180 sessions in 120 venues. That's huge. And this is the sort of thing I've seen the way yoga has been celebrated in even remote places, Uzbekistan, Mongolia. We get reports of thousands of people joining across the enormous landmass of Russia. Or if you go to Argentina, further south, you go north in Denmark, Nordic countries. So everywhere people are, South Africa, New Zealand, Fiji, there's just no end to the geography where you find yoga being celebrated, or the International Day of Yoga being celebrated.
But do you fear that the extension of yoga everywhere will lose the wisdom and the ancient wisdom of yoga by making it too urban or too modern? I mean, it's yet still very modern, but how do you keep the tradition?
I think yoga has, has its roots millennia ago, right? Thousands of years, it has survived, it has evolved, it has imbibed the accumulated wisdom of centuries of practice, and it's been handed down from generation to generation. There's a spiritual quality and a spiritual dimension to it. There is an emotional dimension to it. There's a psychological dimension to it. Besides, what we see is the physical dimension of it. I mean,
yeah, but we lose a part of it if it's too physical.
But I agree with you. But I think some of it is inevitable. But I think we are also evolving protocols in India. We have as you mentioned, Ministry of Ayush. Now, Ayush actually stands for all traditional practices, and by the way, includes homeopathy as well. So it's Ayurveda, it's yoga, it's Unani, it is Siddha, which is practiced in southern India as a form of medicine, and it includes homeopathy. Yeah, so it's Ayush, and the ministry has worked very hard to evolve practices. We also think it would be good to sort of evolve gradually some sort of standards of assurance, quality assurance, certification, etc. on what is practices. But ultimately, if you practice it the right way, you will see the benefits accruing to you. Because yoga is, at one level, we speak about it as something which is about flexibility, its strength, its balance, even the physical dimensions of beauty. But at the other level, it's also about inner harmony. It's about the harmony between your inner self and the outer self. It is the harmony between you and the larger world around you. Until you reach that stage where you are, in a sense, achieve that sense of non-attachment, as different from detachment, till you reach that stage where you can feel that inner harmony within you, that peace, the calm, the inner balance, the psychological with the emotional and the mental and the spiritual, you yourself will not achieve that. So in some sense, it is also those who teach and preach yoga and practice yoga need to also understand that, and the students will themselves feel that whether she or he's doing it the right way, and then look for someone else. So it is at one level possible to some extent to see that there is yoga is practiced in the way it is meant to be, but it is impossible to ensure that throughout the world you will have an absolutely identical standards of practice. But those who do it the right way will feel the difference
and the benefits
that accrue from yoga. And it is not an instant coffee. It is something which takes time, and those who practice yoga will keep learning, evolving, and going to higher levels even after 30, 40 years of practicing it. So it is a journey that does not have a fixed destination. Yourself keeps evolving.
And it protects itself.
Yes, it does.
And since the creation of the International Yoga Day and the dedicated ministry, has it been a huge change in India? Now that 1.3 billion people, are they all practicing? Is it the sun salutations? Are they compulsory? I know there's an app that has been launched to find your nearest location to practice yoga. Is it huge everywhere now?
Now, I think there's nothing compulsory about yoga, but it is generally encouraged across, including in schools, which is a good thing.
It's free?
It is free. It is, but it is not something like, okay, this is what you have to do. Sun salutations or Surya Namaskar is it's not something that comes very easily. So you have basic protocols that help you go through some of the most fundamental yoga asanas, and then pranayam is something which is taught, and meditation. So you have these three elements. So you have a common protocol which can be done in 30, 45 minutes. I mean, if you tell someone to devote 2 hours of a day for yoga, probably not devote 1 minute, but if you tell someone you can do the basics in 30, 45 minutes, and this is after great research or what is the basics that you need to do for you to achieve both physical, spiritual, as well as emotional and psychological benefits
I'm
from
glad
yoga.
people hear you say that
Yes.
only in 30 minutes per day you
Yes.
can find the
Yes.
benefits.
And you can, if you do this at the right time every day, you will see the benefits accruing to you. You don't have to think you have to abandon everything in life and you have to devote 2 hours to it. I mean, people go for a run for 30, 35 minutes, 40 minutes and feel good about it. So, and the good thing about yoga practice, and I'd like to say this to the viewers, is that when you come out of it, don't feel tired. You actually feel rejuvenated. It doesn't harm your knees. It's not going to hurt your ankles. If
it's well taught.
It's well done. But when you come out of it, you feel great deal of energy, sense of awakening, and that at some stage can really become a perpetual state of existence. And it is not something which sounds like a fantasy. It happens. It's a reality.
Prime Minister has claimed for yoga at the beginning of the pandemic, assuming that yoga and Ayurveda may help to boost the immunity system and fight against COVID. And we don't have figures. We have been trying in France to claim the same and to claim that it was a nonsense to close the studios because we help people go through the pandemic and boost their immunity. Do you have figures or...
no, I think
supporting
it's hard,
that
claim. But I'd say something which is logical and people should recognize. One is that what happened during COVID. One is that, I mean, people were feeling isolated in confinement. People were stressed out. People were afraid, anxious about job losses, afraid of catching the pandemic, unsure about what the future held for them. And I think, the one thing that yoga would definitely do is to help you become more centered, more balanced, calmer about the way you deal with issues that are beyond your control, right? It's just the way you handle them. That's one very important consequence or benefit of doing yoga in the time of pandemic. But the other thing about why is it that in some cases people respond better to, say, pandemic than others? It's because the body has the resistance, the immunity, what we call immunity. And immunity can have 2 forms. One form of immunity is when you are able to prevent the disease from manifesting itself. The second is when you are, even if you get it, you are able to ensure that the symptoms are limited and that you don't go into an extreme. These are the 2 kinds of immunity you can have. And we think that it's not just related to COVID. We think yoga and Ayurveda, and there's a lot of scientific research that has gone into it. Scientific in the way the Western science understands it, that has shown that yoga and Ayurveda are extremely useful and helpful for building immunity overall. Immunity against catching infection, and immunity if you catch infection in terms of the disease becoming extreme or acute, because the body develops that resistance. Remember one thing, ultimately all of us, we have some kind of a doctor inside our system which keeps our system in balance, right? You've got like 100 odd organs and systems inside which must be in complete harmony for you to be healthy. Now, whenever there is a disturbance in that, that's when you start falling sick. The purpose of Ayurveda and yoga is not to address that symptom. It is to restore that inner balance inside your system that enables you and your body to fight against the external intrusions. And so we would say that, caution you, yoga and Ayurveda are not cures. Nobody will tell you. But they would tell you that if you practice yoga and follow Ayurveda, Ayurveda is science of life, that's what it means in Sanskrit, you will be able to better strengthen your body's ability to resist the infection, and when the infection comes, to be able to ensure that your body doesn't respond very badly to it. So we would strongly encourage everyone, and there is a lot of now very deep scientific research going across the country in using the same control variables and non-control variables as you do here, in testing how the people responded to COVID when it came to a practice of yoga and Ayurveda.
Well, if you're ready to share the result of the scientific research we would be very keen, because it's a real fight to have people listen to that to that claim. So yoga is for you health, and it's also education, and it's also values, among which respect and ecology.
Yes.
So ecology is really linked to yoga in India, and do you feel that there's more consciousness, ecological consciousness, with the development of yoga?
It's a very interesting point, and as I said, that was one of the issues the Prime Minister mentioned when he gave a call for declaration of the International Day of Yoga. And it is like this: if you practice yoga, you do have a sense of inner fulfillment. You are more centered internally. Your happiness, your contentment, your fulfillment comes from within you. It does not really need external stimuli. It does not need you to say, okay, I must have this meal, I must go here for a holiday, I must go go to the shop and buy this or that. I mean, so in a sense, it will take you away from excessive consumption, because yoga makes you so centered. The highest form of happiness is happiness that exists by itself and for itself and does not need any reason. And therefore, yoga helps you reach that state of being, the spiritual, emotional, centered person. When you do that, you are going to have lower footprint on Mother Nature, on planet. Second is when you realize that higher state of being, that you exist in nature as part of nature, not on top of nature. That is one of the great realizations of in the final state of yoga, when you see yourself as a part of a larger cosmic picture, in which everything that exists in nature has as much right to exist as you have, and that there is harmony between you and nature. You will naturally become much more respectful for every living being, much more respectful for all the gifts and the treasures of nature, and therefore will be more conscious for it. So both from the point of view of lowering your consumption needs, because your fulfillment comes from within you, and because of the harmony that you achieve between yourself and the world outside and the nature, your footprint on the planet and Mother Earth is going to be lower, and therefore it will help us preserve the planet and the ecology.
But the development of the yoga business is not really going in that exact way. We are bigger consumer of yoga props, of yoga wear, and I think it's good to hear you claiming that we should be more caring about less pollution and about Mother Earth, since we're carrying yogi values.
Yeah, if you do really, I mean, you would find, and I can tell you that those who really reach that state of yoga, their physical and external consumption needs actually diminish. And because they...
as for food.
As for food, as for material things, because you're just quite contained and content as a human being, and therefore if everyone does that, I mean, you would probably lower the footprint. Second, you mentioned a very important point. If you commercialize anything on a massive scale, right? No, first I say that those who support and promote yoga need to make it commercially viable for it to sustain. But,
yeah, of course we do.
But if you over commercialize it, you make it into a commodity that you keep innovating on, and etc., then I think as many I know in the United States do, then you will run into a problem. One, because you will soon figure out that those who came to you will soon say, look, it didn't benefit me at all, and for me it is just like another exercise. I may as well be doing Pilates, or I might as well be doing some other form of maybe running, jogging, high intensity interval training, etc.
But you're missing a part of
you're missing a part of
emotional benefits.
So there is something, as I mean, you know, as you are doing in Tigre Yoga, is to have outreach, but do it in a way where it doesn't become, the scale becomes so large that you end up spending all your effort in the logistics and the management, and that the exchange between the teacher and the student becomes remote. And by remote, I don't mean physical or electronic, but in the way you communicate with the individual. And so that will defeat the purpose, and you will soon find people saying, okay, I don't think this benefits me, yoga is not for me. Yes. So yes, I mean.
And what about vegetarianism? Is it being bigger in India, or is meat a symbol of wealth and success?
No, I think it goes through cycle and its habit. I mean, generally, Indians are not big meat consumers, even those who are non-vegetarian. People have, you know, because given the Indian landscape, there's abundance of fruits and vegetables in the country of diverse kinds, different seasons. So people are, and I'd say, you know, people are not just fond of vegetarian food, and some outstanding cuisines, which I'm sure you've experienced in South India, North India, etc., with great diversity is based on vegetarian food. But also, I think that there is a greater consciousness now of health benefits of vegetarianism. But if vegetarian food is cooked and fried in heavy oil, then it is perhaps also going to lose this its value. So, you know, there is something to be said about also the way Ayurveda, for example, prescribes food. And I'd say this, that some of the finest Ayurvedic practitioners don't tell you that, oh, don't eat meat, don't eat fish, don't eat this. This is a myth. What they tell you is that different human bodies are designed differently, because your inner balance, as you know very well.
And because of your doshas.
Yes, because of your doshas. So according to that, you should, I mean, one of the Ayurvedic doctors told me you should not have potatoes. Can you imagine a life without potatoes? I mean, but he didn't say don't have meat or fish or chicken. There were many other things he says you shouldn't have.
No dogma.
No dogmas in this. And it's important because too often people associate yoga and Ayurveda with very austere, very harsh, very ascetic lifestyle.
Yes.
That's not what it is.
People look at yogi and say, oh, do you eat this? Do you do that? Do you smoke? Do you drink? Yeah, we're still supposed to have normal life. But in some ways, promoting yoga is also promoting that ecological consciousness, that consciousness for less consuming, that respect of earth,
it's always better.
Respect of neighborhood, respect
Absolutely.
of yourself and your family. So is this the strong message that your government is trying to carry on while promoting yoga more and more? Or is it more to bring yoga as a national asset and recall that yoga is Indian?
No, as I told you that, it is an ancient Indian heritage. We see that its benefits are immense. It costs nothing to do it. It's free.
Wow.
It is
somehow.
I mean, in a sense that it's not like if you learn how to do it, you can practice it on your own. It does not require props. That's what I mean. I mean, you don't need weights. You don't need a treadmill. You don't need cross trainers, etc. Your tennis racket. So it's in that sense it is. But remember what we are talking about. We are talking also about preventive rather than curing. Yoga is also preventive, and at a time when healthcare costs across the world is growing.
I hope people hear you saying that.
Yes.
Yoga is prevention.
So it is really about saying that, okay, how do we deal with it when we prevent rather than be resorting to curing illnesses?
Yes.
So that's one aspect. The second aspect about this is, as I was saying, that it is holistic. It is not based on, okay, here's a symptom and therefore I will address the symptom. It is supposed to address the root causes, go deeper inside and see where are those imbalances. And when you go to someone, so the person is not going to say, okay, just do this and you will be fine. She says, okay, you practice this in this way, you go through this, and you will see the change coming within you. So it's not cure, it's a change within you. So it's preventive, it's a change, it's a lifestyle which is healthy, and it is non-toxic. I mean, today, you look at any medicine, and I'm not decrying the use of Western medicine. This, of course, has brought about revolutionary change in humankind. Today, we've talked of vaccines and everything. But when we talk of often normal ailments, let's talk about normal ailments. We have a painkiller, we have all kinds of things. It has side effects, right? People take blood pressure, hypertension, something diabetes. Now, there are also side effects to it. Now, yoga, Ayurveda are holistic, sustainable practices that do not have.
And no side effects.
No side
effects.
effects.
For sure.
And too often, when we take allopathic medicines, we don't even know what those side effects are, right? So that's one aspect of it. So I think promoting yoga in India was Prime Minister Modi's vision of many things. As I said, one, of course, is to bring health, wellness rather than just health, at the center of human consciousness, that we all begin to believe that, there's an important dimension of our lives. The second, as I said, was to improve your sense of well-being and your harmony with the others around you, so you create a more harmonious and a peaceful society, a more harmonious and peaceful society.
But do you feel that's the reality in India now?
Well, it doesn't mean everyone is practicing yoga in India. I mean, it's something which will take years and years to introduce, because we have just started. We're talking about 1.3 billion people. But
maybe by bringing back the pride
of
being the yoga nation.
So if you, again, I would like to emphasize that if you reduce, say, I practice yoga, I did Surya Namaskars, and I did this asana and that asana, and I'm feeling good. Maybe you're just focusing on the physical dimensions of it, but you're not looking at yoga in its true dimension and its true meaning, which is also something about inner peace, inner harmony.
That's what we're trying to share with our community.
And if you do that, then you will start changing the way you look at others around you, and therefore, as you were saying, tolerance, harmony, embrace of diversity will come more naturally. And which is why it's important. Look, this is a world in which the youth across the world is experiencing a transition, change, transformations on an absolutely unprecedented scale at an unbelievable speed. There will be anxieties, there is a sense of dislocation, there is a sense of uncertainty about what the future holds, and you see this across the world, and it is manifesting itself in all manners of social tensions, in identity, in relationship between people of different backgrounds, in us versus them, between those who live within the boundaries and those who live beyond the boundaries, all kinds of, and all this is being amplified, magnified by social media, which becomes an echo chamber.
And a new kind of digital violence.
Yes, and it is giving, because the anonymity of digital world enables you to practice verbal violence of the kind, but that's a reflection of the sort of anxiety that the world is, especially the youth, are going through what is really a moment in history when the world is undergoing a transformation that comes maybe in 4 generations, in 200 years, 300 years, 100 years, and the pandemic has also accelerated it. So in this time, whether it is India, whether it is Europe, whether it is the United States, whether it is China, whether it is East Asia, you see some of the most hard manifestations, some of the less desirable manifestations in the youth, which is where you need to say, okay, the calming, the influence, the sense of balance, the centeredness that comes with yoga will be greatly helpful in dealing with the kind of changes and transformations and the challenges that the youth of today is experiencing.
So that means that we have to keep on battling together to spread it over again and again.
Yes, absolutely.
It's still not enough.
Yes, absolutely. No, we have to. And it is just the beginning of what is a social movement. And remember, I mean, in these 6 years, think of where yoga was internationally, or even in India, and where it is today, 6 years later. But it is something where you see a positive trajectory.
Yes,
you see more and more people at least understanding what this is about, or wanting to learn what this is about. Of 10 people who might start on it, 5, 6 may drop out, others will remain.
But we see clearly the evolution, and people feel that it's for everyone.
Yes.
There's no more boundaries. You don't have to be that flexible, or you don't have to look like this, or to be able to speak in Sanskrit. So yoga is for everyone, and that's probably the most universal message that we're trying to carry on, while keeping the level of training and teaching as high as possible.
No, excellent. I mean, and what you are doing in terms of also training other teachers for them to impart this training, and your understanding of what really yoga is about is very helpful, because I mean, from our conversation, I can see you understand that there is a inner dimension, as well as there is an external dimension, a spiritual versus a physical dimension, and that this is a holistic approach to life, not just something that you simply do as some sort of a physical exercise in the morning and get on with being what you are. It is also about changing. So I think it's very important that you continue to project this message.
Well, even though we are all the studios are closed at the moment, we try to keep on the fight and to tell our community to keep on practicing every day, even 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You say so, if you find your own routine, and you can do 30-minute breath, Surya Namaskar and meditation, and find all the benefits. And
absolutely.
So
the
Surya
Namaskar will really get your heart pounding and blood flowing, and then also I think meditation, pranayama is a very, very good thing. Practice the right way. I think it just changes you quite significantly. I personally experienced the enormous benefits of both yoga and pranayama, and in some senses I find that just doing yoga asanas without pranayama is incomplete, and therefore it's very important that both, and then follow it up with even 5 minutes of meditation when you let go of yourself.
That's a very good message for everyone. Do pranayama, breathe every day at least.
Absolutely.
5 minutes. So to conclude, have you met any French yoga teacher? Have you had a chance to visit yoga studios, or to experience the French way of doing yoga?
No, not yet. I've met a few teachers who are Indians who are living here, who teach yoga, and also
in the traditional way.
In a traditional way, but I haven't been to a French yoga class. Run by
Well, I hope we can invite you and see you sometimes during a class when we reopen.
Yes. We'll
hopefully before you leave France in 3 years.
No, I'm sure it'll be sooner than that. The world is.
Well, if the government can hear you and listen to what you said about prevention and immunity, and especially mental health and emotional health, because what we feel is that people are starting losing their nerves and balance.
And I tell you, even some of the finest cardiologists in India, for example, now they have this very unconventional way of where people have somebody goes and says, oh, I have hypertension, etc. They would start sort of putting them on, forget about medicine for the time being, try yoga. Many go back and say, it was extremely beneficial, I don't need it. Even post-operative care, because so much of all our diseases come from the way chemicals in our body are emitted, change, or chemical reactions, and that has a lot to do with the way we react. When we
block the energy.
Yes, that's the way. So a lot of that is unlocked by yoga, and a lot of the negativities are erased gradually, and you see the positives coming in your life. And a lot of people tell me, I mean, they've overcome depression, anxieties by yoga, meditation, pranayama, and things. Manage their diabetes, manage their hypertension, these usual lifestyle sort of challenges people face.
Well, we hope they manage to find their way back to joy and creativity and happiness and freshness. And
because ultimately you have to recognize there are certain things outside your control. What is in your control is how you react to events around. And that is, I mean, so we have a pandemic in this world. Everyone is suffering. Now, there's things we can't change. We can curse the government, we can blame the world, we can blame others. But at the end of the day, that's a reality we live with. So it's how we react to it. So we can't, if the situation is already bad, let's not make it worse for ourselves by getting into a state of depression, anxiety. I know it's very difficult, but I think if you do yoga and meditation and breathing exercises, which we call pranayama, you will see it helping you deal with it and cope with it better.
Thank you so much for your very precious words and precious knowledge. Thank you for sharing that time with me.
Pleasure.
And sharing your yoga point of view with our community. Merci à tous d'avoir suivi cet entretien qui était passionnant. Je suis très heureuse d'avoir eu ce témoignage sur l'art de vivre du yoga qui est plus que jamais présent ici dans cette ambassade. Et vous avez entendu le message de son excellence, c'est que même si ces temps sont difficiles et compliqués, et bien sûr qu'on a envie de sombrer dans des moments de tristesse et de dépression et de doute, on a cette force en nous, à l'intérieur de nous, avec le yoga, la méditation, la respiration, et qu'on peut blâmer et critiquer tout le monde autour, mais finalement, on a cette clé de résilience. Voilà, et le yoga est là pour ça. Merci à tous. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And we look forward to seeing you in Le Tigre.
Look forward to coming there, and all the best to you. May you keep promoting yoga and making a difference to the lives of people.
Thank you. Namaste.